We are here to talk about an anthology movie simply called Demon. This is a 2017 movie directed by Dallas King, who also co-wrote this. So this contains a number of short stories, as you can probably imagine, centred around demonic activity. And there is around 6 or so stories, and the movie is relatively short. It runs only just over an hour, really, so there's not a lot of a time commitment, and as you could probably expect, the movies aren't particularly long. The movie is extremely low budget, so don't be expecting really much in the way of special effects, flashy kind of set pieces, big name actors, that sort of thing. It's all very much kind of a concept film, if that makes sense. So we have these kind of short films with a demonic concept in them, and some of them kind of work better than others. I would say there's two ones that are kind of, I would consider probably the more interesting out of them, and they happen to be the first two. And the initial story reminds me a lot of the movie The Prophecy, which stars Christopher Walken from some years ago, and essentially we have this kind of demon who is kind of walking around our world, and he has kind of got a job to do, ultimately trying to get human souls by killing them, and he's a relatively low run on the kind of like the demonic ladder, and he inadvertently ends up killing a higher ranking demon than him, and because of that, he ends up getting kind of like somewhat in the grace of God, and then starts to develop a conscience and things like this, and starts actually to do good and transition to becoming an angel. And then there is a kind of like a kind of counterpart to him as well. As to what happened in that movie, you have to kind of watch the movie to find out. We have the second story, which is a very much reminds me of the film They Live in a certain way, rather than kind of the sunglasses where you kind of see the kind of the aliens in They Live. This one you have like kind of a whistle that essentially exposes apparently people who are actually demons. And what we have two people talking in a cafe. This kind of businessman who is approached by a kind of a homeless man who wants to try and get this guy to kind of believe that they're in the kind of reality of demons, and tries to prove it by kind of blowing this whistle. These to me were the two strongest movies, and they had the strongest concept. Neither of them were particularly flashy. In fact, the second one has literally no special effects whatsoever, and the first one has minimal special effects, simply with kind of like glowing eyes and things like that from some of the characters. So we're talking very kind of low budget type of affair here. I feel the next kind of movies are a little weaker. I think there's like 3 or so films. The next one being the most bizarre out the entire bunch, where we essentially have a kind of a demonic version of Toy Story, where we have this young boy who is being visited by a demon of a night, and his toy soldiers try to protect him, but they're not done in the way of really special effects. They're literally actors dressed up in kind of army gear with some oversized kind of props. So there is, I guess, that's the degree, and it's just a little bit of a bizarre concept, really, especially when we kind of see the soldiers like cocking kind of real guns and things like that. I think the acting in this one is significantly kind of poorer than the kind of maybe the first couple of efforts here, and just the I mean, the idea being maybe it's all in the kid's head, but you know, I don't think it was a particularly strong movie. Then we have a couple of movies. It's a relatively quiet. We have this kind of like these two girls that are sort of chatting via Skype, and one of them appears to be in some sort of danger, and they may well be some kind of like demonic activity involved, and maybe they're not on Earth anymore. And then we have this kind of guy who is having out-of-body experiences and kind of having demonic visions. These two to me were very throwaway. There wasn't much really happened in them. And then the final one is probably the most lavish in regards to special effects. It looks like it's taking place at some point in the future, and we have these two future kind of soldiers kind of invading this party, trying to take out a reported drug baron. And there's kind of like future tech and all this sort of stuff here, and but it doesn't really have a lot to do with demons. This one, it seems like it doesn't really explicitly kind of mention demonic activity at all. It more looks like it's kind of outside of some glowing eyes. It's more or less kind of just people, if that makes sense. Although it's certainly maybe the one that had the most budget on it, and I did kind of quite like some of the kind of the cyberpunk designs here. So interestingly, visually that one might be the one that people remember, but I feel the story-wise, the first two are the strongest. So should you watch this? If you're a real big Anthology fan and you like the kind of like the Tales of the Unexpected, the Twilight Zone kind of like twist kind of things where they have like this kind of neat concept and then there's kind of like oh my god moment. The issue I have with anthologies in general is you get very little characterization, and the problem is where you have obviously such a short running time and really kind of, to be honest with you, the acting is relatively poor with, you know, obviously fairly kind of low budget kind of set design and production values. It really doesn't, you know, it really doesn't kind of feel like you're watching a film rather than kind of a student production and stuff like that. I do feel that there's merit, certainly in the first two movies and maybe the last one as well on the visual level, although I feel the story of that one's a little bit convoluted. Could be worth your time, and maybe the first two could have been expanded upon a little bit more, and maybe could have had maybe a bit more of a longer running time and could have maybe dropped a couple of the other ones. So it's probably a little bit of a below average film, although I don't think it's necessarily bad. You know, I mean, some of the kind of the toy soldier one is legitimately bad, but the others are kind of more forgettable. But the first two are at least, I think, have some interesting ideas, and I feel the acting is a little better in those ones, particularly the kind of the second story, and the concept is fairly good. So I'll give it a 4 out of 10 overall. The first two I would probably say would maybe a 6, but the rest of them take the whole movie down to about a 4 for me. Have you seen Demon? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.